Well, I'm here to present to you the improvement framework. As you can see, this presentation was prepared by colleagues from Bond, and they kindly shared it with me so that I could present it for you today. The improvement framework is part of the Bond Effectiveness Program, and as you can see, there are two elements that are part of this program. One of them is this framework of share indicators, which is what I'm going to present to you now, and an online effectiveness self-assessment. And what is the purpose of this program? The purpose is to support organizations so that they can collect robust evidence, just like the ones that our colleagues have just shared with us. And we know that organizations, they face challenges in that. So the purpose is to build the knowledge and skills of organizations. And you can see here just quickly a list of the contributors and also the partners, some of which are here in the room. But what is exactly the framework? The framework, hopefully it will be a way to tell organizations what they should assess, but also how to assess it. Because sometimes that's the problem. Sometimes people know exactly what they want to measure, but they don't know exactly how to measure that. And the purpose of the framework is to provide this kind of support. As I said, we know that we face challenges measuring our impact, measuring the effectiveness of our programs. And there is an increasing demand from donors to show robust, to come up with robust evidence. And to be fair, I think in the sector as well, there is an increasing acknowledgement that we do need robust evidence so that we can do better decision making and also better programming. So you see here a picture of the framework itself. You see on the outer circle, there are different thematic areas, so it's not just about education. Education is what I'm talking about right now, but the framework itself, it covers different thematic areas. On the inner circle, you see the strategies and approaches that are common to all thematic areas. And right in the middle, you see principles, common principles for assessing effectiveness. We won't have the time right now because this is a 10-minute presentation to go through this in detail, but we can share the presentation with you later, and I'll be here during the day so you can approach me and we can talk about that. You've seen this slide. We have a flavor from this slide on Samantha's presentation, and this is how the education framework looks. And for the other thematic areas, it's quite similar. So you see here that we have all the circles. They represent domains of change. And we came to define these domains for all the organizations that contributed to the framework. So it's all based in best practice in the sector. And if you see, it's covering exactly the aspects that our colleagues were talking earlier. So you see community engagement, you see access, and you see quality. So once you know what exactly you want to change, you need to know what exactly you need to assess. You want to promote, for instance, a change in how schools are managed and if they are safe and well-resourced, which is the circle number 3. So you see around all these outcomes. This menu of outcomes is what the framework is proposing as what to assess if you want to promote all the changes that you are seeing here. So on the next slide, you see how to assess it. So on the top of the table, you have the domain, which is the change that you want to promote. And then you have the outcome, which is what you are going to assess, what you should assess if you want to promote this change. And then you have a list of indicators that is telling you how you can assess the change that you want to promote. These indicators, it doesn't mean that every single organization that wants to promote this change or to measure this outcome is going to choose all these indicators. You shouldn't have more than 3 or 5 indicators because it's just not feasible to monitor so many indicators. So this is actually a pick and choose list. And the way you know exactly what to monitor, you need to take into consideration the resources that your organization has. You need to take into consideration the context that you're working with and what would be relevant. So how exactly you can use the improvement framework? You see here the cycle. So first of all, you start thinking about the problem. What is the problem that you want to tackle? Once you know the problem, once you know exactly what you want to do, you come up with a vision of the change that you want to promote. And then you have to identify who you want to work with, who you want to influence, and how exactly you are going to do that. And then that's when hopefully the framework will be helpful. When you get to the point where you're going to identify what is it that you want to assess and how you are going to assess it. And then you have to collect all the data, and if I just quickly come back here, you will see that we have not only indicators, but the tools that will help you to collect the data in relation to these indicators. So you collect the data, you learn from it, you make your decisions, and you communicate your results to stakeholders and to other colleagues in the sector. Because we need to get better at sharing the knowledge, we need to get better at sharing the challenges that we have as well. So to clarify, some people think that this is just a form, this is a magic tool, that you're going to look at that and you're going to have all your intervention already planned. But that's not the idea. The idea behind the framework is that it's going to be a simple and practical tool. And it's very important to say that it's going to be an online tool. So the purpose is to be dynamic. As the sector evolves, the tool will evolve. As the practices change, the tool itself will change as well and adapt to it, adapt to all the changes. And we want to come up, all the organizations that were involved in coming up with this framework. The purpose is to have a collective resource, to try to have some shared approaches within the sector. And also it's very important to emphasize the communication, to share everything that we are doing and everything that we are learning so that we see exactly what is working, what's not working, and why. So it's not a single way to do it, it's not a single way to measure effectiveness and to come up with robust evidence. And it's just a starting point. It's not going to tell you everything you need to do from the beginning to the end when you are collecting data and coming up with evidence, but it's hopefully a starting point and something that will contribute to the work of organizations. The way forward from now, you see here, last year all the organizations, they were gathered together in workshops to brainstorm, to think of their own practices and to come up with what was considered best practice in the sector. This year what's happening is that a draft was written, a document that tells in detail all the information that I'm presenting here on these slides. And now we're going to have in May another workshop where we are going to test the tool, where we are going to see how practical it is and how helpful it can be for organizations. So we're going to come up with real-life examples coming from the organizations and case studies and test it. And in July, the tool is going to be launched online. And I do recommend you all to take a look at it. And not just for organizations, we have here as well colleagues from schools. And I think it's good to take a look at it to see what is considered best practice and what kind of support organizations are expected to provide to schools in the developing world, but also we have Save the Children, for instance, has domestic programs, and I'm sure that other organizations here in the room also have domestic programs. So I think that hopefully it will be helpful not just for the NGO sector, but also for the schools. And we have the workshop later. Here, as you've seen, we're going from the beginning. We're talking about indicators and outcomes. But the workshop later today, we're going to focus a bit more on impact and on impact evaluation. But it's very important to say that you cannot measure impact and you cannot have a good impact evaluation if you don't do the homework well, if you don't start well, knowing exactly what you want to assess and how you're going to assess it. So I hope to see some of you later today on the workshop. Thank you very much.